Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dar. We have a very fascinating topic today, and this is about our I-90 journey, transforming healthcare through GraphQL Federation. So today I want to walk through before I started, I am a distinguished engineer at CVS Health, and I lead Center of Excellence for Services and AI practices. Before joining this amazing team, I was with American Express and Walmart, and also I lead tech advisor for IBM and Apollo. So today I would like to take you to this journey. The journey is about I-90 initiative. You guys all know about I-90 highway. It interconnects multiple cities. It is the largest highway. And our I-90 experience layer is very similar. Instead of connecting to highways, it actually connects the experiences across our multiple domains. And we build all these foundations on the GraphQL. Just to understand the sheer size of it, we have around 2,500 experiences, and we have 200 plus subgraphs used by almost 2,000 engineers, and we want to scale to our 19,000 engineers across the company. We built this in the first MVP. We built it in 3 months, and pretty much we've been working for last 2 years, keeping evolving. So if we can do this one, any one of can do this particular. So what is the agenda looks like today, right? So we have the journey, we divided into 4 categories. The first one, we'll talk about our use case. What are the challenges we encounter, and what is our goal we want to achieve that one. And the next one we will talk about is how we solve it. We'll do a deep dive on our architecture and also the implementation of the GraphQL Federation. Then we also talk about anything we do, right? We always, when we talk about 2,000 engineers and things, we are talking about building a frameworks. So we'll actually unreveal our reusable frameworks we have built. And the last one is, I just want to do 2 things is, we want to always work on the developer productivity. The way we have done is the Copilot. So I will try to do one part of the video of the Copilot we built that actually does the, it builds the code for you and also auto discovery. And I just want to do a disclaimer before, I'll read out, before we do deep dive into this topic today. I want to clarify these opinions are our opinions and don't reflect CVS Health and affiliates. So with that, actually, Gaurav will take over the talk.
Yeah, thanks, Dar. I'm Gaurav Tyagi. I'm the Principal Architect, Technology and Digital at CVS Health. So imagine a world for an organization with 2,500 plus APIs, and each API having multiple versions. And these versions were created to cater to different requirements for our consumers. And these consumers range from web app to mobile app to B2B consumers that can be internal as well as external. So because of these different requirements across our consumers, each one had a different data requirement, security requirement, their performance needs, and so on and so forth. So because of these, we landed up in a maze of different API versions. So you can imagine every API had 2 to 3 on an average version, and with 2,500 plus APIs to begin with, you can imagine what is the breadth of the entanglement. So that led to a complex web of APIs that we were living in. And what these came up with the problems are, the problems that we came up because of this maze was, number one was performance. So every API call obviously costs us in terms of application performance. And this was really critical for our mobile app especially, where we need a very light and fast response from our APIs. That was the paramount requirement for our mobile app. Apart from that, because of these various API version, there was code bloating. So what that means is, even though these APIs had different versions, they differed only minorly. And most of the cases, there was a difference between a data schema, maybe somebody wanted more data or the data structure needed to be changed. Basically minor differences, and that caused us to bloat the code, meaning we had to maintain multiple versions with almost 80 to 90% of the same code. So obviously that maintenance was a constant churn where we were in a constant cycle of updating as well as syncing all these versions across. Instead of innovating, I mean, we obviously wanted to go into innovation more than we wanted to maintain these versions. And another problem that came with those versions was data consistency. So something that we really want for our customers, especially for our B2B consumers, which are external to our organization, is to have a consistent data. And even for our internal applications, imagine a use case where a user goes to our IVR or a care system and sees one set of data for the same functionality. And when they go to our digital system, they see different data for the same functional API. So that was definitely a big problem for us, where we were having complaints, user complaints for having inconsistent data. So all of these problems, we tried to delve into what was the root cause of this problem. And then for that, we interviewed a lot of our engineers. And one thing very interesting came out of those interviews is the API versions, when the engineers created new and new versions, one reason was lack of discoverability and data documentation, data schema documentation. So either the engineers, when they went out to create a version of an API or a new API, they were not able to really discover if an API already existed that would cater to their needs, or even if there was something existing, the documentation was not really helpful, and especially the data schema. I mean, they were not able to understand what the API actually did, and then they ended up creating another version. So with all these problems, and I'm sure these 4 problems that I just listed, it's not just us that we faced as a developer. I'm sure in this room, each one of us engineers would have faced at some point or other one or majority of these problems. So that's where we thought we needed a change and a way to simplify our API landscape, streamline development, and deliver consistent and yet reliable data to our consumers. And that's where GraphQL came in. We embarked on a journey, dubbed as Project I-90, like Dar introduced, to create a GraphQL-powered ecosystem. So it's not just one platform or one technology that we had. It's a complete ecosystem. That's the Project I-90. And on the center of it is GraphQL. So we came up with this layered architecture to reduce that entanglement and the web of complexity with our APIs. So if you see, we have clearly defined layers of our architecture. The first one is the experience layer. So what the experience layer does is it lets you use the platform in a very easy way, in a time-efficient way and faster time to market to create experiences. So these experiences can be like for your mobile app or a UI for your web app, or even B2B consumers. So all they need to do is using GraphQL Explorer, that is one of the tools that we used. The users are able to build these experiences in super fast speed, and it's all automated. So that's where we have this low-code, no-code platform that gives, using GraphQL tools, a way to build those experiences. And all the user needs to do, and that user doesn't need to be technical. It can be our business partner, product partners, QA engineers, or whoever it is. They don't need to really have a knowledge of GraphQL. All they need to use this platform and the tool. What they do is any user can come in, use the Explorer, build their queries or mutations, GraphQL, get them reviewed, approved, and saved into our system for further use. Okay, so the second layer in this diagram or this design you see is the capability of the subgraph layer. So this is the most critical piece of a design. And that's why I think we took the most time in developing and defining and refining across multiple iterations this particular layer. Because this layer is our core of our domain-driven data. So these are the capabilities that we offer not just to our internal consumers, like our mobile apps, B2C consumers, or web, but also to our outside world, to our external B2B consumers. So this had to be really done, thought through, and that's where we spent a lot of time here and clearly defined those schemas, data schemas. The next layer is mostly consists of the existing APIs or services. These basically talk to our data sources or external APIs or whatever the case may be. And we seamlessly integrated this with the new architecture, which was GraphQL based. And these APIs were a potpourri of both monolithic or modern microservices. So it was a mix, but we were seamlessly able to integrate this with the new design. Now we ended up in a situation where we had this GraphQL-based ecosystem, and our consumers, the legacy or the existing consumers, still were on REST. So how do we match them? So we came up with this layer called shim layer. So all it does is it's basically a translation layer between our existing REST-based consumers and our new GraphQL-based ecosystem. So this will act as a sort of a translator to convert all the request and the REST requests and the responses to and from these two systems. This layer additionally does one more thing. So like I mentioned, we create experiences, we review them, approve them, and we save them. So this layer also serves as a security layer, where the consumer just needs to give a reference to their GraphQL queries or mutations for that matter. And this layer will actually store and serve up those queries on real time. So once the request comes in, checks the reference, pulls the query that was registered, and then fires it up. So that's where this layer was very helpful to be completely backward compatible. So with this new architecture, Project I-90 became a testament of the power of GraphQL. It's not just about the APIs that we are transforming, but it's the way how we develop, streamline the development, also how we serve the data in a consistent and scalable way. So now join us as we dig deeper into the nitty-gritties and the actual technical aspects of how we made that happen. I know this is two different worlds that I talked about, but I'll hand it over to my colleague Anand, who will dig deeper into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaurav. Good afternoon. My name is Anand Ashokan. I'm a principal engineer at CVS. So Gaurav described in a slide how we really nail the whole architecture piece, right? But there is a big complexity. When we try to build that kind of a software for scale, right, double quote scale, right, we are talking about 2,000 engineers currently practicing GraphQL at CVS, and we want to be able to take this framework to 21,000 more across the organization. So scale is the key thing that we need to address when we build the software. So first, let's talk about scaffolding, right? I want to bring up the challenges that we had and why we needed scaffolding, right? When it comes to choosing frameworks, right, there are a lot of choices when it comes to GraphQL. Think about, are we going to build the application Spring Boot versus Express or Nest.js, or are we going to do reactive programming or non-reactive programming? Like, there are a lot of choices you have to make before you even get started with building the application, right? And it's like mind-boggling, right? Then there is this schema approaches, right? Do I do a code-first approach, or do I do a schema-first approach, which works better? You often get fight with your co-workers, deciding what really works for you. Then exception handling, that's a separate topic by itself. I think that gives me nightmares in GraphQL because, do you handle exceptions as data, or do you handle them as errors, or what do we do with all this HTTP status codes? GraphQL is all about 200 HTTP status codes, everybody knows, right? So a lot of choices, a lot of difficulties in deciding what you really want to build within an application. And when you have over 2,000 engineers deciding how they want to build this, it's a very big complex ecosystem. The other aspects are, like, think about observability, right? Now, let's say you were to build this application. You need consistent logging, you need consistent tracing, you need consistent auditing features so that when you build the whole stack, when you stitch everything together, it has to work seamlessly, and you get a 360-degree perspective of what happening where with your customers, right? And how things flow end to end, right? So there's always a consistency that is required when it comes to observability. Then comes performance. Think about, like, how do we manage caching with our subgraphs? Do we use data loaders for bulk input requests, or do not use it? There are a lot of choices that we have to make when it comes to even thinking about observability and performance and things like that. And then the final piece, which is very important, is security. Security is a very, very pivotal thing for the organization that we work, and it has to be ingrained into every single line of code. It's very, very important. Security cannot be compromised at all. Saying that those were the challenges of why we needed scaffolding of application. Now we're going to talk about, like, how we solve this problem, right? So the first piece was, as I talked about, exception handling. We build custom exception handlers for developers so that developers can ease into it. We have built various flavors of exception handling based on the use cases that typically user would face, right? And we built it as libraries and tools. So as long as they can use, like, custom decorators or annotations, exception handling is out of the way. There are some exceptions, but we take exceptions separately. We have a discussion, and then we try to incorporate exception handling in a different way for that, right? And built-in observability. All our scaffold applications have built-in observability. It just is a side effect of our application. No developer has to think about logging or auditing an application or building a custom metric. It's all built into the framework. All the developers have to do is focus on the functional aspects of the code, and the observability is a side effect of what we do. And performance improvements, again, we talked about, like, using data loaders, caching. We built several libraries, wrapper APIs on Redis, and we have built some libraries for data loaders, in different languages like Spring Boot, Node.js. Now developers really just have to import these libraries and use it. So all the best practices and architecture patterns are embedded into the libraries, rather than we write tons and tons of Confluence pages and things that we have baked all the best practices of using exception handling or performance right into the code, and developers have to just choose and import these libraries and use it. And finally, the scaffolds that we have built, it is a fabric of our CI/CD pipeline. The CI/CD pipelines work very well with our scaffold applications. So the applications can understand, if the developers are really using the scaffolded application, they are using the best practices, are they adhering to the security standards, it can certify everything, right? Right from the version of the code to, how we deploy things, or all the standard practices are managed. So it's all embedded. It's one fabric. The CI/CD fabric is part of the application library, and it gives a very good visibility of what we do. So the benefits. I think the biggest benefit is everybody's happy. Our security architects are happy. Our developers are very, very happy. And our product engineers, our product managers are very happy because they can deliver the software much easier, much faster. Right? So as we talked about, like, security is by design, it's architecturally sound, and CI/CD is not negotiable at all in these cases. Okay, so the outcome, what is the outcome, real outcome of this thing, right? So now, in the past, developers would spend so much significant time, writing POC code, right? Trying to implement as we talked about caching, data loader, trying to experiment, trying to figure out if these applications are going to scale, work, right? And it's a repetitive process. You may be having a developer working on the same thing, right, trying to figure out and then build things, right? But with the scaffolds, the biggest advantage is it's proven, it's hardened. The application is already hardened, and we have tried it in production. And so we are very confident in communicating to other developers to say, hey, by the way, this really works in production. Why don't you just adopt? Don't reinvent the wheel here. Don't do things again and again. So you can just use. The outcome is the reusability, and the time to market is really very high. We used to be able to deliver software like in 4 weeks. Now we deliver it in a day or so. Thank you. All right. So we talked about scaffolding. Now we are going to talk about a developer portal. Dar talked about what I90 is and what is a developer portal. First, before we talk about what a developer portal is, let's talk about what are the challenges why we need a developer portal. Imagine there is a developer and your manager says, oh, by the way, I want to get your, try to build a subgraph. I want to be able to see a demo tomorrow morning, right? What happens to this midnight developer, right, is trying to go search documentation and figure out, hey, by the way, how do I build this graph? Where do I deploy this application? How do I build security around it, right? They have to go through so many, we had to go in the past to so many Confluence pages and wiki pages to figure out how to really build first an application, deploy it, and then successfully certify it, right? That was the biggest challenge. And then the second one was, there was so many outdated and inconsistent data across our organization that these pages never get updated. It's very difficult to figure out, what is the current version of the app documentation versus the older version of documentation. So this leads to a lot of frustration to our developers. The developers are very frustrated to get answers, or they're trying to find information up, right? So that these frustrations are the reason why I think we built an I90 developer portal, which will help developers to get access and information and all the tools at one place. It's a one-stop place where they can get all of these features. So let's talk about Subgraph Central, right? So Subgraph Central is basically, I've seen these instances in the past. My developers were building, a prescriptions schema versus a medication schema versus a drug schema. Come on, guys, all three of them are same. Why do you build three different schemas? That's just because of the transparency and visibility in a bigger organization, right? Now with GraphQL, I90 portal, all of the schemas are in one place. So there's huge visibility. Developers can look up what's already available versus not. And then they can start the foundation right from there. Governance. Okay, so for any good application, the important thing is to be able to build the SLO and the SLAs right when you build your application, right? So I90 portal allows you to do that. So I90 portal, when you start building an application, you can define what your rate limits of this application are going to look like. How much TPS are going to operate on these experiences. Then how do you, circuit break your application? What are your thresholds to manage circuit breaking? Like how do you manage your active-active setup, right? It's a very complex system to be able to do a hybrid cloud setup with active-active, right? So all of this is baked in the I90 portal. All the developers have to do is click a few buttons, right? And choose the recipe that they really want to be able to deploy their GraphQL application. Okay. So building, deploying, and automating, right? I90 portal really allows one key thing is like we talked about that midnight developer, right? We want our developers to do rapid prototyping. We don't want our developers to be scared of building an application, saying, hey, how am I going to build it in a day, right? So we want our application developers to be very agile. We want them to be very rapid in prototyping things and see if they can really build, right from unit testing their applications and then testing it, making confident choices, like while they build these applications and deploy to production, right? And that's one of the advantages of the I90 portal. It's a wizard which takes care of, different stages of application, right from build to deploy to production. All right, so we have made all those good framework changes and things like that. Now, how do we improve our framework to cater to all of this, right? So we definitely believe in data, and that is a very crucial aspect of, making certain decisions when we come and decide how we are going to build our next phase of our application. So we track every event, every subgraph event or an experience event, and build dashboards with Grafana, right? And it's all embedded into the I90 portal. So the developers really have visibility of their production live events that's going on right now. And they can make better choices when they're building a new experience in the future or so. We talked about scaffolding. So scaffolding is, again, a piece that is baked into the I90 portal. Now developers have options between choosing 3 frameworks. They could choose between Spring Boot versus Python versus Nest.js. They can select the language that they like, right? And they can start building applications right away in a few button clicks. It just, all they have to now focus on the functional aspects of the code rather than, the technology aspect of the code. Okay, so we talked about security. So the I90 portal, so when it comes to security, there are 2 crucial components, right? One is, like, how do you deal with authentication? Like, how do you deal with authorization? Things like that, right? And then when it comes to use cases, like, are you doing authentication and authorization for B2B clients versus a B2C clients, et cetera, right? So now that is all baked into I90 portal. So as long, it's a, developers really have to choose, what the authentication authorization types are, and they are able to integrate the experience, and the framework handles it very seamlessly based on what authentication authorization prototypes that you have used. And finally, I mean, it's a place where I90 portal is a place where people can come, comment, they can provide feedback, they can collaborate. It's a place where they can combine ideas, generate ideas, right? And that has been a successful place where developers really practice good coding. All right, now Dar is going to take the final note.
So thank you, Anand. And what we want to do the next steps is, I think our focus is to do more for developers where they can become more effective. So there are 2 things we did. We built a Copilot, and the Copilot, I think there are 2 parts of the Copilot. One is that even though we build the GraphQL, there are a lot of times UI team comes in, hey, I really want to do an accumulation, I want to filter my data, I actually want to consolidate my data. So one of the things what we have done is low code, no code. We believe in low code, no code. And we give an ability for our end users, like UI developers, where they can write it in their own natural language with what they really want without even understanding the schemas, right? Yeah, I can write it in natural. I want to filter my prescriptions X and Y, right? So that is the first one. The second one is the most important thing is the discoverability. When I say discoverability, we can always build subgraphs. When you look at a scale of 200, it may grow to a 300 or 400. How do I build my like queries without even understanding the natural? I want to build in a natural language, I say, right? So these are the discoverabilities. Basically, we are building based on fine-tuning of models and also actually doing the RAG based on the actual schemas what you have. So I just have a quick demo that will actually go through the first one. Can we just play the video? So I'll do a voiceover. So what we see here is now, I'm a UI developer. I want to format or filter. So here, if you see in the rules, I am just writing my particular rule, and then I also want to see what I want to filter. Then what is the output I would like to see, and then you can actually give your GraphQL query. So what happens is on the background when you run, it actually generates the code for the developer and also gives you what is the output of this one. So it is running your query, it's giving you the code, and actually it is giving you the thing. So within the portal, you are able to, actually people are able to transform with low code and no code. So that's really what we are doing. And the second part we are working is how you can build queries by natural language, so people can build their own queries. So this is, I think this is the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.